Figuratively speaking, I want blood. I want blood. I want to see you both slit each other's throat. I want to see you both disembowel each other. That's what I want to see. Or there could be a collaborative effort of some kind that might be the best for Raw, might even be best for the family. I don't know. All I know is this is going to be entertaining because you both have equal say and you both are running Monday Night Raw. Go figure it out.
And that audio was courtesy of WWE. What's going on, good people? This is the Common Man Nate Lewis with the new edition of the Commentate. And this show was a little bit different than I originally anticipated. I originally had a guest lined up for the show, and at the 11th hour, he decided to duck and run and tail. And that person, Darian Lewis, hope you're listening to the show. I'm going to be burying you throughout this show. In all seriousness, though, we'll have him hopefully on sometime here in the near future. I want to get Darian on the show. We were going to discuss some things recent with WWE, and I also wanted to get his take on WrestleMania, as he was able to go to this past year's WrestleMania. Kind of want to get a live perspective on the show itself, but we will get him on the show soon, and we will discuss that and just get his take on Mania. But as for today's show, we are going to focus on the last WWE pay-per-view, Payback, as well as the current week of NXT. NXT, I definitely wanted to get done, definitely wanted to do the show this week, as NXT is coming here to Tulsa here on Saturday. I already have my tickets and plan on going to the event. Hopefully to have a great time. It's the first time that the NXT brand has come to this area of the country, and I'm very excited to go. Moving forward, though, let's get right into it. Since I have a lot of notes on the Payback pay-per-view, let's just dive right into it. Payback for, I believe this was on May 1st, live from not Chicago. It's actually live from Rosemont, Illinois. And it's been years that I've been a WWE fan. And every time they come or would come to my hometown and I was ready to go, it would not shock me so much that the event actually wasn't in Chicago, but Rosemont is kind of a ways out there from Chicago, so for them to still call it Chicago is funny for us who live or grew up in Chicago, knowing where Rosemont actually is. But we'll for the point of this review, we will call it Chicago if that's what WWE has chose to do for the last 20 plus years. The show opens with our boy, or I should say our favorites, the New Day, making their way down to the ring, and just got this gigantic reaction from the live crowd. And they came out with everything. There was tracksuits, bootio shirts, unicorns, trombones, the whole shebang. Giant reaction. Xavier Woods gets on the mic, and they didn't really say much here. Basically, they were out to watch the finals of the WWE Tag Team Championship #1 Contenders Tournament. Xavier got to, I believe it was Kofi got in a Beyonce and Lemonade line. If you're not familiar with what's going on with Beyonce and Lemonade, Becky with the good hair, look, you need to get out of wrestling bubble for 2 seconds and go look at your other friends on Facebook, and you'll get the full story. Enzo and Cass actually are the first team to come down. It's kind of weird still seeing them open or on the WWE program and seeing them in NXT for so long. But they come out, they do their usual spiel. Enzo does his catchphrase. The crowd is eating all this up. There's a Hey Arnold reference from Cass. Football-shaped head, the whole shebang. It seems the WWE, the millennials that are in WWE now, just want you to, as a fan, grasp that we really missed the 90s, and the 90s were awesome. And they were. So the Vaudevillains come out, and as their interest is starting, they get a good amount of boos, and then it just stops. The Vaudevillains as an act, even on NXT, I mean, when they were actually heels, it was kind of, it was an okay act. It was able to kind of get over to a certain degree in NXT, and then the babyface turn happened, and things kind of went a lot better for them as a babyface group and kind of, everything manly. And you can tell at the end of their NXT run when they went back to being heels, this was not something that had legs. And since they've been up to the main roster, this has definitely not worked. As for the match itself, there's not much to talk about. Obviously, everybody knows what happened. But I'll just quickly go over what happened in the match itself, because prior to what ended up happening with Enzo, this match was actually pretty fun. There was a lot of offense from Cass and Enzo, involving Cass just throwing Enzo into the Vaudevillains. The New Day were sitting ringside eating popcorn and pizza. Just hanging out. No big deal. We eventually do get to the spot in the match where Gotch has a hold of Enzo and looks to throw him into the ropes, and I still haven't gotten the story of what the spot was supposed to be. Was it just supposed to be that Enzo would kind of neck himself on the second rope if he was supposed to slide out of the ring? I'm not sure exactly what the planned spot was, but for those who haven't seen it, Enzo kind of goes for a baseball slide underneath the rope after being tossed by Gotch, and kind of gets hung up on the second rope, slides underneath, head hits the canvas, falls out of the ring, and is just completely immobile. They kind of show some shots of his eyes are wide open, he's breathing funny. It's a very scary looking occurrence that we had. The referee goes out to check on him. Simon kind of goes to lift him, and the ref basically has to shove Gotch off of Enzo. And at that point, we get the medical team from WWE. They go and they check on Enzo. For whatever reason, we got about 5 or 6 replays of this in a row, and it was really uncomfortable. And you can see the look on Cass's face and the New Day's face. This was very serious. And after kind of a moment or so there, WWE smartened up. They stopped at the replays and they just panned over and kept the camera on the announcers as they're trying to, obviously this isn't a planned spot. They're trying to race to come up with something and to go from there. WWE did a tremendous job updating us on Enzo's condition throughout the night. Obviously, you've heard the news. It was just a severe concussion. And from what I heard from Dave Meltzer, Enzo was apparently at Raw the next night. So, nowadays, when you bring up concussions, it could still be very much it's still very much a terrible thing. And to hear someone have a concussion, it's very much a scary thought. But when you initially look at what happened on that spot, it could have been so much worse. And I'm glad that he was able. I'm glad that Enzo, for the most part, will be fine. We obviously don't know how the concussion will affect him going forward, or even later on in life. But just happy that he's okay now. So during the chaos and all that, the match was called off. And that was it. We went into an extended long video package for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And I didn't get to watch this pay-per-view live, but I kind of kept up on feeds on Twitter and on the Cult of Kayfabe group. And a lot of people were worried, oh man, Zayn and Owens are next. They have to follow. The crowd was definitely brought down. The crowd was at a 6 when the match started, and maybe at a 7 or 8 as the match was going. They were at a 3-2. Easily. So, Owens comes out first, followed by Sami Zayn. I still love the fact that the crowd sings along with Sami's song. It makes him look more like a star. It's fun. People are having fun in the crowd. That's always a good thing. Another thing I loved about this match is, for years, people have expressed their anger, or they look at WWE and go, how can you allow this to happen? If you remember, a couple years ago, main event of WrestleMania, Randy Orton versus Triple H. And the feud had gotten to the point where it got incredibly personal, and these guys are definitely want to get into each other. You had a home break-in where Triple H shows up at a sledgehammer, which actually produced one of my favorite memes of all time. I may even use that as the album art cover for the show. But he goes to Orton's house and beats his ass everywhere and chucks him out of the window. And it's this intense feud. And we get to Mania, and with this intense feud, this guys who are boiling to get at each other, gotten personal on many levels, they lock up to start the match. Now, I don't know if it's just been common knowledge since then that, hey, you know, maybe we shouldn't have done that. And now when you have rivalries and feuds, and when it gets to that degree, it gets that personal, that it's now a thing. Hey, you guys can't start with a lockup. But I would like to give the actual congratulations, or I would at least like to say Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens were smart enough to go, hey, look, this rivalry's gotten to a point now. We can't start this match as a regular old match. And they didn't. It was fist and elbows flying out of the gate. Sami Zayn, I cannot describe how great of a babyface Sami Zayn is, or even to that matter, how great of a heel Kevin Owens is. And if you don't believe how good of a heel Kevin Owens is, go check out his Twitter. That's all you need to know. But the match starts. There's hands flying back and forth. They end up on the outside. Sami hits this dive over the top rope. And you can just tell that their mission in the first few minutes was, this is a blood feud and we need to go at it. But we need to get this crowd back. And it didn't take long. A minute or two into this match itself, the fans were into it. They were hot. And they stayed hot the rest of this match. Zayn beats up on Owens for a little bit until Owens kind of catches Zayn on the apron with a knee. Owens at one point screams, and this is another example of just Kevin Owens. Maybe it's just me personally. I got to kick out all this stuff that Owens does, but you got Zayn sitting on his butt, Owens right behind him. You know a chin lock is coming. We've been conditioned to know in this position we're getting a chin lock. Owens kind of stretches his arms. There's a huge smile on his face. He claps on that chin lock and very loudly goes, "Let's get a chin lock going." And the crowd ate it up. They're booing. This is a great match, and it's like 2 or 3 minutes in at this point. Sami Zayn comes firing back with elbows, and then Owens hits a back elbow, which Sami Zayn immediately popped up and hit a clothesline, and that's something that kind of played throughout the match itself. A guy would hit a move, the other guy would sell just enough to let you know that he got hit, but immediately pop up and hit a move. And it kind of set the tone for the story of the match, which was, you guys hate each other. And it's so much adrenaline and it's so much into this that you don't want to stay down. You just want to keep hitting this guy. And it played throughout the whole match. At one point, Sami Zayn goes for the standard 10 punches in the corner. Goes a little bit more after that, too. Hits him with like 11, 12, 13, 14 shots. Then Owens hits a boot. Zayn goes out to sell it, and then immediately pops up. It hits a Michinoku driver, and then Michael Cole. I'm not gonna get into Michael Cole. I'm not gonna bury Michael Cole. Well, I am gonna bury Michael Cole here, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. It's clearly a Michinoku driver. Here's the thing: people don't know who Taka Michinoku is. That's fine, whatever. But Michael Cole does. Michael Cole was in this company when Taka Michinoku was in the company doing this move in the company. So a Michinoku driver, to him, even if he doesn't want to call it, go with the old Vince standard what a maneuver. Instead, he calls it a Blue Thunder Bomb. You know what? Fine. Okay. And maybe if you made a mistake, that's cool. Not a problem. But immediately after this Michinoku driver goes for a near fall, Sami Zayn actually does hit a Blue Thunder Bomb, like the very next move. And Cole, to his credit, tried to save it by saying after he hit the Blue Thunder Bomb, Sami hit the more conventional Blue Thunder Bomb. Whatever, Cole, fuck you. Anyway, Sami Zayn hits the Blue Thunder Bomb, gets a near fall. The crowd at this point is losing it. This is awesome chance, and this match truly was. Kevin Owens then gets on the offensive and hits a beautiful, beautiful frog splash. Gets a near fall off of that. 2 cannonballs in the corner by Owens. He sets up for the pop-up power bomb, which Sami reversed into a drop kick. You then got a one-arm full Nelson suplex from Zayn to Owens, who immediately popped up and hit him with a clothesline. I'm not sure if there's a name for that suplex where the guy's in full Nelson position except for one arm is dropped and then you kind of bridge back as a German suplex. If I can figure out a name for that, there needs to be a name for it because every time I see that suplex, it's the same one that Zayn hit on Owens during the Intercontinental ladder match at Mania. The one that Owens ended up on top of the ladder. It looked like a horrible landing. Same one here. There needs to be a name for that if there isn't one. Both men are on the apron. They're going back and forth, trading punches on the apron. These aren't your standard traditional punches. This is made to look of two guys who cannot stand each other and just want to just hit the other person. It then looks like Kevin Owens is setting up for a pile driver. I think the announcer teased it as a power bomb, but Sami reversed that to a back body drop, and Owens is selling it on the apron. They then tell us again that the apron on the outside is the hardest part of the ring. That's fine. They can continue to do that. I have no problem with that. Sami at that point then hits one of my favorite moves where he dives on the outside, goes in between most of the time it's the bottom and the middle rope, kind of by the post, swings in for the DDT. That spot will always get a pop no matter what. Sami then starts to look for the drive-by kick, but gets super kicked by Owens and goes right into a pop-up powerbomb for the win. I put here in my notes what a great match. JBL in true JBL fashion then comments that match is already stolen the show 2 matches into the pay-per-view. That's fine. This is the first event in a long time that I've tried to assign star ratings to matches. And I'm looking up and down the star ratings I gave to these matches. This would be one of those things where if I were watching these matches without trying to take notes, my ratings may be a little bit different. Initially, I gave this match 4 stars. In all actuality, it could be a quarter of a star here, a quarter of a star there. But 4 stars seem pretty solid. It's the highest rated match I had on the show. This match was great. After the match, Owens slapped Sami Zayn and tossed him out of the ring. And then he calls Byron Saxton into the ring. And just in true dickish heel fashion, he goes to open the ropes for Saxton. And Saxton, is going to enter the ring. And then Owens just gets off, walks away. Kind of just a dick thing to do. So Owens is wanting to get interviewed after what is a big win for him. And it truly was a big win. And he very audibly tells Byron Saxton to ask him how he feels about his win. And Saxton, who, whether just to be a complete asshole or he really is that stupid, decides to ask, how does it feel for the rivalry to now be over? Which is not what Kevin Owens wants. He grabs the mic immediately and says, that wasn't the question, but it doesn't matter. He yells that he beat Sami Zayn. He says that he's the better man. All true. He won this match fair in the middle of the ring. And that now he's going to focus on getting his Intercontinental title back. At that point, Byron reminds Kevin Owens that the Intercontinental Championship match is next. And Kevin Owens decides to take this as an open invitation to be on commentary. Now, I'm going to review this next match here. And I don't have a lot of notes for Owens on commentary because I was really trying to pay attention to the match. But Owens on commentary, although sometimes he would kind of catch himself being off on something, for the most part, I loved. Especially would love that he buried all the announcers, even burying JBL while not intentionally burying JBL. Just great. So if you're not a fan of The Miz for whatever reason, if you're not a fan of Cesaro for whatever reason, go watch this match just for Kevin Owens on commentary. But the Intercontinental title match was next. Miz now has a new entrance where the red carpet is rolled out for him, and his beautiful wife Maurice comes out first. And it may be me, but I actually kind of like the Miz's new getup with the kind of gold kind of play on the sands from Dragon Ball Z costume there with the hood on it still. So I kind of like that look for him. Up next, Cesaro comes out, and he is slowly walking, and you see the James Bond background behind him. So obviously it's a take on Bond. He does the ripping of the suit he's been doing the last few weeks, and Cesaro section signs pop up everywhere. And then we get started with the match. At the very beginning, I think Cesaro now in his matches, while they tend to be great matches, I think on these pay-per-views, he just wants to show how freakishly athletic and strong he is. And there's spots done just to show that. At the very beginning, we get a standard Odd Ringer spot. And this normally turns into a guy doing a kip up and then reversing the arm wringer. Not with Cesaro. Cesaro basically starts doing kip up reps. Just, he would pop up, go back down. Pop up, go back down. This guy's just a freaking crazy athlete. A little bit later on, Miz went for a body press, and Cesaro kind of, instead of just catching him for like a power slam, just your standard body slam, power slam, he catches him on his shoulder and turns it into a backbreaker. We get a little bit later in the match, and both guys are on the top rope, and Cesaro kind of knocks Miz to the outside onto the apron and sets up the spot where he would suplex him from there on the second rope, pulling the Miz all the way over the ropes for the suplex. But Maurice gets involved. Cesaro then at some point, we've seen him do this a few times. He's in a rear naked choke position or sleeper hold position, and he turns it, stands up. He's basically in Miz's guard, powers out of everything, and hits a suplex. Like I said, just freakish stuff done to show how freakishly athletic this guy is. Then the uppercuts. There's about 10 uppercuts, and then he goes to do 10 running uppercuts, and then ends up doing a running front kick, gets a near fall. At this point, the fans are definitely into the match. Cesaro then goes back and hits that suplex from the apron over the top rope. That gets a near fall. We get the corkscrew. I love this sequence here. We have the corkscrew uppercut that led into the big swing spot. The Miz kind of counters, and then he eats a vaulting uppercut. Cesaro goes for the cover. Miz's feet gets on the rope. Cesaro goes for another uppercut. Miz sidesteps him. Cesaro goes into the post. Miz hits the skull crusher finale, and it just is a kick out at 2. Great near fall. Great sequence. Thought it was well done. At that point, Owens is still talking on commentary, burying Cole, and all of a sudden, Sami Zayn leaps into our picture, goes to beat the hell out of Kevin Owens. We go back into the ring while these two are just fighting everywhere. Back in the ring, this match is still going. Guys aren't distracted, so good on them for not being distracted by this mess that's going on outside the ring. We get the big swing. We get about 20 reps, and Cesaro turns that into a cross arm breaker, crippler crossface, whatever you want to call it. Somehow Owens and Miz, though, the last time we saw them on the screen, they were fighting, I believe, in the stands. And as this crossface is being applied, they're on the ring apron, which distracts the ref. So as the ref is distracted, Miz obviously taps. Cesaro should be the champion. He sees that the ref is distracted by these two guys fighting on the apron, goes to take them both out. Miz then cradles him schoolboy. Because no one can kick out of a schoolboy, I'll tell you what. Miz made sure to grab the tights just to be even more of a heel. Gets the pin. Miz is still the champion, but we're not done yet. Cesaro then beats Miz's ass afterwards. He hits the neutralizer. Owens hits a super kick on Cesaro. Sami Zayn hits the ring and eats another pop-up powerbomb. So the only person left standing at the end of all this is Kevin Owens, who not only got the big win, but then at the end looks like the king of the world at this point. The Miz Cesaro was good. I gave it, like I said, I'm going to give this a shot. This might change, and going back and watching matches might change star ratings, but I gave this 3 stars. It was good, and by giving it 3 stars, I'm not taking anything from it. It was a very good match. What came next, although I gave it a good star rating, was an example, and I think it just happened in the live crowd too, of we just got these two, we just had a excellent match, followed by a good match that had even more stuff happening in the finish. And up next we got Jericho versus Dean Ambrose. And, these guys, they've had a pretty good rivalry set up through television, but something about a majority of this match bored me. And Jericho's an excellent worker, one of the greatest of all times, one of my personal favorites. Dean Ambrose is a guy who I think is well below where he should be on the card and well below where he should be in terms of reaction from the crowd. But for whatever reason, man, I maybe have 2 lines of notes on this. And like I said, the match was good. I mean, when it was over, I looked at it and I said, hey, that was better than the Intercontinental title match. I gave it 3 1/4 star, but I mean, the only notes I have on this match were Jericho goes for the lion salt. Dean got his knees up, and then there was a struggle where Dean hasn't been the underhook for dirty deeds, and then just he finally hits it and gets the pin. Everything about the match was technically good. I love the finish. It didn't do much for me, and the crowd itself seemed a little bit out of it as opposed to what they had been the prior two matches. Up next, we have the women's championship match between Natalya and Charlotte. Early on, both ladies tried. It was a one-upmanship. You're going with that story. One of the ladies would do a move. It would be countered and one up by the opponent, and it went back and forth like that. At one point, Charlotte bails, goes to the outside to kind of just slow down Natty's momentum, and they do the spot where the babyface chases the heel, and then the heel gets the advantage by beating the babyface to the punch, getting back into the ring. They exchange some chops. Natty does a release German suplex, and it kind of goes back and forth, and then Charlotte goes back on the offensive and starts working over Natalya's leg, which for the most part is the story throughout the match until later on, but we'll get to that. At one point, Charlotte goes for a top rope moonsault, and Natty shoves her to the floor. This kind of led into a really weird spot, and I wish this would get explained to me. Charlotte's on the floor on the outside. She's kind of walking. Natty goes to do, I guess, some type of springboard maneuver. And Charlotte grabs her legs, drags her to the outside, except she's caught her in a powerbomb position. And they tease a powerbomb. And then they would tease a Hurricane Rana reverse. And then they would tease it. And it would go back and forth. And in the end, what you got was Natty kind of hit a Hurricane Rana, only Charlotte didn't go over. And I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be a spot where she released it and Charlotte would go into the steps. It kind of would have played into that, but we ended up not close to that, and it just looked really weird. We go back into the ring, and Natty goes for the sharpshooter, but Charlotte reverses it to like a backbreaker. And then she has the natural selection, which should have got kind of a bigger reaction from the crowd, but that move isn't necessarily as over as the figure 8 is, so it didn't get the pop I thought it should have gotten, and it was just a near fall anyway. Charlotte then goes and applies the figure 4, which Natty reverses it. Charlotte then applies the sharpshooter immediately after the separation, and we get the Montreal Screwjob finish 19 years after. Now, what I should have mentioned is that obviously Ric Flair's in Charlotte's corner, and Natty's corner was Bret Hart. So Bret's out there, and he's sitting there. He's rooting on his knees. He's out there with her, and all great for him. And I hope to God that they talked to this man about doing this finish before he agreed to do this finish, because when I first heard about this, I should say, I thought, well, that's some bullshit there. You know, that Montreal Screwjob, for however you feel about who was in the right and who was in the wrong, no one had it rougher after all that went down than Bret Hart. And you can say, well, he did it to himself or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, the man, yeah, while he made money going to WCW and he should have been a big star and all that, the fact is he was not a big star in WCW. He got hurt, led to problems down the road, and all this bad stuff that happened to him after this finish in Montreal, and they bring it up again with him standing right there. It was almost like, I shouldn't say that. I know who approved it. Who even brought this up in the meeting for it to be approved by Vince McMahon? I just the match itself, I gave this one about 3 stars too. And it wasn't really because of the finish. I know some people out there said it was a great match except for the finish. I didn't see it that way. Their match at Roadblock was a million times better. Their match at TakeOver a few years ago was better than this one as well. This just kind of seemed like it just kind of seemed like they didn't get everything right in this match. I'm not talking about executing moves. I mean, just whatever story they were trying to tell, something was missing in it. And It was a very good match. It's just I've seen better from them. Speaking of seeing better from someone, this next segment I have no notes on. It was Vince and the McMahons coming out to decide who's going to run Raw. I didn't need to take notes on this. I didn't want to take notes on this. I went to skip ahead twice and did it in 10-minute chunks, and McMahons were still in the ring. So this segment was long. And for those who don't know, Vince basically brought both Shane and Stephanie out there to decide who was going to run Raw. He basically said, I want to see blood. I want to see you guys go at it. But hey, maybe not. Maybe you guys will get along together. You heard it in the clip. And he basically tells them both, hey, you're running Raw. There's not much that needs to be said about this. So it's main event time. We have AJ Styles versus Roman Reigns for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. AJ Styles comes out to a pretty decent reaction, while Roman Reigns is damn near booed out of Illinois. The match kind of starts off just kind of, both guys exchanging, going back and forth. Not really much to it either. I kind of got the same feeling as Jericho and Dean Ambrose at the very start of this match, and then that changed quickly. And it changed when there was a spot where Roman was going for the Superman punch, and AJ just hits his enziguri in midair. And then after that, it picked up. Both guys end up brawling on the outside. AJ then goes back into the ring and hits a springboard diving phenomenal forearm. Goes right through the table with Reigns. And like I said, this is where the match really picks up. The ref kind of gives them a few seconds. They show some replays, and he starts his count. And AJ starts to move around. He's trying to get Roman into the ring because you can't win the title on a count out. He's trying to get Roman into the ring. The referee hits the count of 8. Roman dead weights and falls on the ground. And AJ at this point has a choice, and I really love this. So AJ's on the outside. The count is 9 at this point. Roman's down. He could have taken the time to try to, let me get one last ditch effort to get this man back in the ring and risk being double counted out. Or I can get back in the ring. I can win the match by count out. And at least with that, I'm guaranteed a rematch. And I thought it was brilliantly executed. I believe it was JBL was the one that brought it up on commentary. Just brilliantly done, and I'm glad that it shows a babyface thinking. The fans didn't like this so much. We basically got a countout win where AJ wins the match, but he isn't the champion. So of course the people booed Roman still being champion. At that point, Shane McMahon music hits. He comes out basically to say the match will not end like this. This match will continue with no countout, so we get a restart. Styles finally gets Roman back in the ring, and he goes up to the top rope, but Roman rolls out of the way. Roman hits a jawbreaker, but is caught by a Pele kick from Styles. AJ goes back to the top rope to hit a 450, but Roman gets his knees up, and that gets a near fall. And then we kind of get some weird struggling back and forth, and then AJ Styles gets dick punched, and the referee realized he got dick punched and called for the bell. So again, AJ won the match, but it's not the champion. Now, the first time they did this we have a screwy finish. The fans were visibly upset. They're mad, they're angry, and we get a restart. When this one happens, the crowd kind of goes, okay, Shane came out the first time, so Stephanie's got to come out. So it got less of a reaction than the first one, but it still got a reaction. So that's exactly what happens. Stephanie comes out, says they're going to restart the match now, and there is no disqualification on top of that. So we get the second restart, and we ended up on the outside with AJ and Roman basically taking turns going back and forth, knocking one guy over the barricade, and the other guy would bring him back over. We get a spot where Roman is laid out on the Spanish announce table, and AJ jumps from the barricade and drops a foot right on the back of his neck. That was a pretty cool spot. AJ was on this whole match. I mean, any springboard or weird contortion he had to do in the air, everything was spot on. Everything was perfect. Everything was phenomenal. I believe I wrote it somewhere. I have it somewhere in here in my notes. this performance by AJ Styles, and I don't mean to slight this, just hear me out when I say this. It reminds me a lot of Seth Rollins' performance against John Cena and Brock Lesnar from that Royal Rumble match, where everybody in the match is good, but one guy really shined as the star of the match, and that was Seth. And in this match, Roman was absolutely fine. Roman was a great base. Roman was in position for everything, but AJ just looked like a star out there. Roman, I'm sorry, at this point, lost my train of thought on these notes here. They're back in the ring, and AJ goes for the phenomenal forearm again, but Roman hits the Superman punch, and that gets a near fall. Roman's then upset at this point. He can't really put AJ away, so he hits another Superman punch, and he goes to set up for the spear. But Bullet Club hits the ring. They start beating the hell out of Roman 2-on-1. So Bullet Club are in there. They're hitting Roman with the beat him down. And the whole time AJ's on the outside. He's selling, so he's not necessarily seeing what's going on with Anderson and Gallows. He's not really seeing Roman getting his ass whooped. But, Bullet Club, they hit the boot of doom on Roman. Roman's laid out. AJ gets back to his feet. He hits another phenomenal forearm, gets another near fall. Usos then come out. They even up the odds. The four of them are going back and forth. Meanwhile, AJ goes back up to the top rope to land, I'm assuming it would have been a 450 or something. I'm not even sure. But Roman shoves him off. AJ goes falling into the pile. The whole pile's out. Everybody kind of slowly battles their way back to the feet. Roman hits the Undertaker WrestleMania dive and takes out everyone but AJ, who happened to sneak into the crowd. Then hops up, runs the barricade, and hits a phenomenal forearm again. He then throws Roman back into the ring, hits a springboard 450. Just beautiful. Just everything about it looked beautiful. But it led to another near fall. AJ then goes for the Styles Clash. Roman reverses it. He sends AJ out to the apron. Roman is then kind of setting him up for the Superman punch while Styles is on the apron, but Styles catches him with a boot. He goes for one last springboard forearm. Roman ducks it, hits a spear, gets the win. Very good match. I gave it a 3 3/4. This easily could have been a 4, just like the open, or just like Zayn and Owens could easily be 4 1/4, 4 1/2. Very, very good match, especially after the false finish. The pay-per-view ends. The McMahons are backstage, and Vince asked Stephanie and Shane if they believe AJ should get a rematch. They both agreed. Stephanie goes to then give a time and place for the rematch when Shane jumps in front of her, says it needs to be an Extreme Rules match at Extreme Rules. Stephanie then proceeds to very almost kind of, it's not sarcastically, but there's an agenda when she says she fully supports Shane in that decision. They're just teasing dissension already. And that was the show. Very, very, very good show. Really good show, actually. A lot of great matches. Unfortunate what happened with Enzo, but now that I record this a few days later, we know that he's okay. So, just taking that one away from it. And even that match was good up until that incident. It was a very solid pay-per-view. So, up next, like I said earlier, I'm going to the NXT house show here in Tulsa on Saturday. So, I wanted to be able to watch NXT from tonight to kind of get me back in that vibe, since I've been hit or miss on NXT since Mania weekend. But this is the NXT for May 4th. It's coming back to Full Sail University. This is the first time we see Samoa Joe since he pinned Finn Balor at another house show, which I believe is in Nashville. So Joe comes out for the first time, says he's a man who keeps his word, he's the champion, he's the best, he's beaten, and blah, 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 your traditional stuff. And then the music hits, and out pops Eric Young. Now, obviously I know Eric Young was in NXT. I've seen the spoilers and things like that. I just did not think this would be the show, so it generally caught me by surprise. Now, I'm not the biggest Eric Young fan. The Eric Young I remember back when I gave TNA any chance of being something I would watch weekly. He was a comedy geek, and he was a great comedy geek. The Don't Fire Eric, I loved all that. Team Canada loved Eric Young. I didn't get to really see his main event Ascension on TNA, but the crowd here at Full Sail They love anybody from anywhere that's not on currently the WWE main roster. So he gets a big pop. EY chants all over the place. He comes down and he says, Samoa Joe, I know you and you know me. He then talks about the strap that's on Joe's shoulder. Eric Young says he collects championships and that things around here are going to change. At that point, they're eye to eye, face to face, and Samoa Joe bails out, jumps out of the ring, and says that Eric Young doesn't deserve to be in the same ring as him, and that the next time that these two were in the same ring, Joe was about to beat that ass. So Todd Phillips and Corey Graves are on commentary for the night. They kind of just go over everything we're expecting to see tonight and the reaction from Eric Young showing up at Full Sail University. Up next, we got Tessa Blanchard on her way down to the ring. I've seen Tessa a few times. She's green, but getting better. And she comes down here to face Nia Jax, who this match was, let's just get this out of the way. This was a squash. There was a bunch of power moves, Samoa drop, leg drop, pin, Nia Jax, vicious monster. Here's my problem with Nia Jax. I don't have a problem with her work, don't have a problem with her body. I actually think her body type works very well to have something different in WWE. She's a beautiful girl. My problem is she was set up as this monster. This monster then went on to face Bayley, got beat by Bayley, and she's not really in the title picture. They're kind of just acting like, they're not acting like the loss didn't happen. They mentioned the loss, but she hasn't progressed. She hasn't degressed. She just kind of went to exactly what she was doing before. And it's, I don't know, maybe somebody there knows better than I do. I just feel like after that loss with Bayley, there's one or two ways you could have gone about this. You could have gone about now her having to face higher levels of competition on a weekly basis and having longer matches, or you could have her go on a warpath, which is something I would consider doing, and just having her beating the hell out of every woman in every women's match until she got a rematch for that women's or for the NXT women's title. It's kind of how I would have done it, but they've just put her back on the ship she was on before the title shot. Up next, probably along with Alexa Bliss, my favorite competitor on NXT, Ty Dillinger, comes out. This crowd loves Ty Dillinger. The gimmick is fun. He sells the gimmick fun. It's a fun gimmick. And who do they put out here to go against Ty Dillinger but Austin Aries? And Austin Aries is a darling, but even Austin Aries was not more over than Ty Dillinger tonight. Everything Ty Dillinger tonight. Match starts and Austin Aries gets an early upper hand. He hits a corkscrew plancha and he followed that up even with a middle rope net breaker. Dillinger's in the corner, hits a knee out of the corner, and then hits this freaking awesome fireman's carry into a net breaker for a very close near fall. Good near fall here. The fans then start chanting, and I couldn't make out if they were chanting that was 3 or that was 10. It's weird how you can't tell sometimes what that crowd chants. Dillinger then goes and pulls his knee pads down, but he eats a rolling elbow, a drop kick into the corner, and Aries hits a 450 splash for the win. Solid match, fun match. We then get clips from last week of the Hype Bros getting jumped by the Mechanics. Look, okay, I wrote down the Mechanics. I then had to go back later in my notes and put in the Revival because they're the Revival. They will be the Mechanics. I'll try calling them the Revival, but they're the Mechanics. Just like Elias Sampson's the fucking Drifter. That's just how it's going to be with me. Sorry. So the Mechanics and Hype Bros are next. The Hype Bros have like this entrance that you think would be super over. They're guys running around. They're jumping. They're yelling. They're gesturing to the crowd. Just everything. Pyro. Everything about this should be over, except no one likes Mojo Rawley. And Mojo Rawley is just bringing down Zack Ryder, who gotta help him. This is kind of a deaf tag team. He is trying to make the best of it. But we get into the match, and the Mechanics here are the Mechanics. They are a solid tag team. They just do everything very well. And it's a long heat spot on Zack Ryder because you don't do heat spots with Mojo. That just would be a terrible idea. finally Mojo does get a hot tag, and this is. I remember hearing on the Brian and Vinny show, or I believe it was Brian and Vinny, where Vinny was explaining that when Jason Jordan gets the hot tag, it's the same kind of hot tag. There's going to be suplexes and tosses and things like that, and that it's the same one. He wasn't disrespecting Jason Jordan when he said that, but he said, hey, it's the typical comeback. I will take Jason Jordan's same comeback every night for 3 years before I have to deal with Mojo Rawley's shoulder tackles. Oh, when Mojo gets in there, we going to get to see some shoulder tackles. He's going to shoulder tackle the first guy, then the second guy come back, hit the third guy. Guess what? Shoulder tackle. Not even a clothesline. Don't trust him to throw a clothesline, but he'll shoulder tackle you. Anywho, he goes for this one, and I need to learn names. Okay. Dawson then sets him up. They hit their finisher, the Shadow Machine, on Mojo. Didn't even really cut off his hot tag. Just he sort of missed a move, and then they hit their move and pinned him. Thank God. Backstage, we get Raging Alex Riley, and I swear the woman that interviewed him, I was kind of in the middle of cooking here at the house for this night, and I hear this lady who sounds exactly like Trisha Takanawa from Family Guy. That's who I thought it was, and when I turned back to the television, it was just Alex Riley, and they kind of cropped the interview lady out, so I never got to see her actually, but that's neither here nor there. So Alex Riley, he then he's talking about Sensei Nakamura. They're having a match next week, and I guess Trisha Takanawa here said something about Nakamura being the king of strong style, and Riley quickly dismisses that and says he doesn't even know what strong style is. He runs down Nakamura and says that a raging lunatic is going to punch him in the face next week. I got even more distracted here. Look. I think a lot of you remember when Alex Riley came back and he cut that one promo in the back. I loved that promo, and I was like, "Yo, this could really go somewhere." And this promo wasn't bad. I just really did not care about this, and I like Alex Riley. I really hope they do something with him, or he's able to kind of put it together, because he was capable of cutting that, I thought, really great promo. But then this one was just kind of It's everything ragingness and. Oh, next week he's gonna feel my rage, and just drop that shit. Just get back to where it was, where you cut that first promo. Hey, I was hurt. I'm pissed off. You guys aren't promoting me. I told you I'm coming back. There's no video package for me. You don't have to then turn everything into a raging fucking pun. If you'd have just stayed on that track where you just pissed off at the world, it would have worked. But this just did not work for me. Up next, No Way Jose. This is my first taste of seeing. Oh wow, I shouldn't have threw in taste with a man named Jose. I had been hearing about promos for No Way Jose. I know he debuted a couple of weeks ago, but this is my first opportunity seeing him. He faced some jobber who, my wife, as she was walking in. All right, I guess I should backtrack here because I actually love this. So No Way Jose's opponent is nameless. Commentators didn't give him a name. Wasn't introduced as a name. Doesn't matter. To me, he looked very much like a Asian American in the ring. Nothing really overly impressive about his physique, and he had a tattoo. That's the best I can tell you about him. My wife, who is seeing this No Way Jose gyrating and dancing and the crowd going crazy, found it funny. And at the end of the day, look, if you're laughing, you're entertained by this act, and that's what this act can do for you, there's places on a roster for a guy like this. So I'm perfectly fine with that. And then she took a look at the jobber and said, is he Samoan? No, he can't be Samoan. What is he? And I don't think it mattered. I think the other guy's winning. And left. And there wasn't really much to this match. No Way Jose danced. The crowd loved it. And then he hit a full Nelson slam, and that was it. I had a lot of fun watching this guy. Hope to see him each and every week, and we'll see where it goes from there. We had another interview chick talking with Austin Aries, and I really like this promo. Austin had mentioned that he was the hottest free agent signing back when he debuted, and since then he's been kind of flying under the radar, which is absolutely true. Like, you think about it, he showed up, and then all of a sudden we have Shinsuke Nakamura in, and then now you have Eric Young, and it's kind of like no one's really talking about Austin Aries. He says he's fine with that. He'll rise to the top, and he's off to eating a banana to refill his. Did he say potassium? Pretty sure he said potassium. And then up next, just out of the blue, and maybe I missed something between Alex Riley's raging promo. They may have said this, but Samoa Joe and Eric Young is next. Just the graphics there. Is next. We got a really good video package for Finn Balor, and it's kind of recapping his rise in NXT and all that, and then losing to Samoa Joe and what that meant to him. And at the end, he says something to the effect of, "We'll feel the force of the demon." And it says that Finn Balor will be back next week. You're under the impression that it won't just be Finn Balor, it'll be the demon Finn Balor. I wrote here next on my notes, wow, this match is actually happening. Not much to it. It's your standard back and forth at the beginning. Joe launched Eric Young into the inside. He launched Eric Young outside the ring, hit a dive, and that's before we got a break. Joe was easily dominating the match. There was a few times where Eric Young would string together a couple, forearms or a couple of right hands in a row, but Joe would always cut him off. Joe sent Eric Young into the turnbuckle, and Eric hit one of the famous Ric Flair turnovers, but lands on his feet, slides in underneath Joe, hits some right hands, hits a suplex on Samoa Joe, which looked impressive, and then he landed a big elbow from the top rope, but that was just for a near fall. Joe was then beaten back into the corner. Eric Young runs into him, and you know what happens then. One arm slam from Samoa Joe. Joe then slaps the shit out of Eric Young a couple times, set him up for the muscle buster, Coquina clutch. Eric Young tapped. Ball game, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty solid match. After the match, Samoa Joe's holding on to Eric Young in that choke just a little bit longer. Not enough that the referee's, going to reverse the decision, which I've always hated that when that happened. But he eventually lets him go. Joe celebrates with the title after a couple. Then after a couple of replays, Joe was just standing in the ring with this belt as we go off the air. As far as NXT goes, kind of looking back on it after reviewing my notes, there's a couple of bright spots, but for the most part, just a very average NXT. But I'm excited to see these guys when they come in on Saturday. After the event, other than trying to get pictures with some of these stars, I'll come home and I'll do a actual blog entry about the night itself. I'm not sure if I'll actually do a podcast on the show or about the show at all, but I will definitely be writing a blog about it, so catch it on the commonmanpodcast.com. That is it for tonight. I'm in desperate need for something to drink at this point. I want to thank you guys for listening. Check us out on the website, commonmanpodcast.com. Facebook page, The Common Man Podcast there. We are on iTunes. We are on SoundCloud. We are on YouTube and Stitcher. Thank you guys so much for listening. Peace. And you know that chicken grease.